me 1 moment to start recording. Just the chair.
Okay, ready to go?
Just 1 moment.
There we go.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Thank you for joining this edition of the Finance Administration Committee's meeting. It's July 19th, 2022. I'm David Lowe, the chair of the committee, and attending is Mayor Chaz Jones, member of the committee, and City Council President Ruth Causey, member of the committee, City Manager Chris Workman, Assistant City Manager Chelsea Starner, Finance Director Mike Mikowski. Is that right, Mike? I keep getting you mixed up.
Merzinski. There you go.
Merzinski. Well, okay, it starts with an M. Thank you. And then City Recorder Ruth Post. Thank you very much. So the first order of business would be approval of the minutes, and I understand, Councilor Causey, you had a few suggestions, I believe.
Yes, I just sent out a couple of Scrivener's corrections. Page 1, line 44, delete the second word that. And on line 45, change that to this. And on page 2, line 42, it should be by Mayor Jan Jones, not my Mayor
Jones.
All righty. Okay. So is there a motion to accept the minutes with those amendments?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Okay, and I will second. All in favor? Aye. So we've got that business taken care of. It looks like we only have one item to discuss today, unless there's something else on the docket. But this is looking at putting on RFP for a classification and compensation study. This is something that the council has been interested in for quite some time. We had a very good comfort level with our former finance director, but we always thought that when we had a change, we would like to get a proper survey done, I guess. Assistant City Manager Chelsea Starner, I think you're also the HR director too, Chelsea? Okay. Would you like to give us a little rundown of what you have here?
Sure. So as you mentioned, this has been discussed with the budget committee, I think several years. I know, Ruth, that you had brought it up at one point. It's been several years ago, and had been tabled several times, but that in this budget cycle, it was decided to put some funding in for this compensation and salary study. We are hoping to look at several things, a little bit of a comparison between some of our positions, not all of them, but we do have several positions that do similar related work. Currently, most of those positions are on the same scale, but we just want to ensure that that's still accurate. So the intent is to put out this RFP. I do have a list from several cities of companies that they heard back from recently when they've done similar studies, similar RFPs for studies. So we'll send them out to those companies and just try to get the word out as much as we can. I know that it's in hot demand right now. I've heard that they're about 5 or 6 months out. I'm hopeful that because we're a smaller city, we can be fit into their schedule a little bit easier than someone who's larger. And this particular RFP a lot of the language was taken from a couple cities, primarily Canby, who just very recently went out for a similar study, and they had a good response. Their budget was quite a bit higher. They had some additional components to their study that we won't have, and they have quite a few more employees. I think they're at 86. And we have considerably less. We're in the 30s, mid 30s. And that includes part-time positions. But my hope is that you can look at this, or that you've looked at the document, and any feedback that you have about things that you had hoped to see when you discussed this, or any changes you'd like to recommend. I am ready to hear those.
Okay, thank you. Ruth, Councilor Causey.
Thank you. I had a couple of clarifications and a couple of general questions on page 2 under goals and objectives. The second sentence is not clear there. It says prior to the start of the project and job descriptions will be updated.
It should say job descriptions will be updated, no and.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. At the bottom of that page, the next to the last sentence, should it be public sector or public sectors? I don't know.
It could be either way. I think the intent was to show like differentiation between like police sector, but it could be either way.
Okay.
I am trying to remove that.
If that is a more contemporary interpretation, I'm happy to go with that.
I think it goes either way. So let's
see. Page 3, item number 4, under overview, recommend a system to administer compensation and classification systems. It just seems unclear to me. What is it you're asking?
say 4A.
Yes.
Recommend a system to administer compensation and classification systems that comply with pay equity requirements and meet the City of Philomath's joint labor management interests. So while this is not going to be a full pay equity study, because that is, you can wrap it into this, but it will probably cost the same amount of money as doing this part, and you would only end up with that. We still are hoping in having some comparison done. So that's kind of what that's related to, is we need to know how to administer our compensation, our salary. It's going to give us all the information that we need to go forward with to administer that. While we do have a step system that I believe was updated in 2019, we just want to ensure, and we did say in this document, we want to keep the step system. We've already looked at that, but we want to ensure that that system is, the best practices, that we don't need to look at adding additional steps. I don't believe that we do, because we did just recently update it, but we do want them to look at that and make sure that overall we're complying with, the pay equity classification systems, and then our union negotiations that are coming up. That's sort of mentioned there with the labor management.
When you read it, it sounds very clear. I was just confused by all the systems.
My hope is that when someone who does this for a living reads it, it's going to make perfect sense to them. So
I'm going to just build on that. On that topic, one thing that has caused me to just kind of throw a flag at one point was the fact that we have this longevity pay. And when you go through when we review the step system, that was not clear to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was this other thing that just kind of added a layer of non-transparency that I discovered, months later when we were reviewing the document. And so I just want to make sure that is included in the review.
Yes. So when we talk about total compensation, it's going to be the longevity, benefits, anything that's added in. They're going to look at all of that, including that. I know with the police contract, they have like special assignment pay. That's really spelled out very well. But anything that an employee is getting to compensate them, we want that to all be looked at.
And I noted that we kind of cover that in number 3 of the overview. That was something also that I was particularly interested in, because I think, if I recall, some of our conversations in the past have been around these additions to just pay, the longevity pay, the paying for the PERS insurance, maybe some other benefits, pay time off. So I think it's important that we get a clear picture of all of the employee expense, not just the straight pay, but also all of the benefits that are there too. And I guess when I think of benefits, will this be looking at, I guess, health insurance and other, like the PERS contribution? I mean, it's good. It's going to be pretty broad based in terms of what it looks at, right?
Yeah, they will, in comparing, they'll look at that somewhat, all of the benefits, just to ensure that all of the positions that should be eligible for those are eligible. We don't have any concerns about that in looking at it, but that'll be something that I'm assuming that they will want to look at to compile data on. And then,
yeah, I'm not quite sure what the result would be from any of these, whatever firm we choose, but it would be nice, I think, to not only know what the straight, I guess, pay is, but then also what the additional value of those benefits are in the dollar form. So I think the council's better informed about just what the expenses are.
sure.
The councilors, Kazi and Mayor, do you have any comment about that part of it?
I would absolutely expect the cost of every single benefit to be itemized.
Okay.
And whether it's a premium payment or a retirement contribution or whatever it is, it should all be itemized and comparable.
Okay.
And some of what they'll be doing here, we get, similar to what Joan did, you'll get cities that reach out to you and say, we have this type of pay. Can you tell us? I just did see one come through that was for longevity pay of smaller cities. I think it was Independence, asking about, what are you doing? That's, they're going to do a little bit of that with those additional pay benefits that we have. Same thing, comparing it to some of the other cities. We are not, by far, not the only small city that does that. We have to be competitive being out here in Philomath, but that it is still occurring in other places, which I didn't know. I mean, assumed that it was, but I did see a number of cities reach out with some feedback about that in particular.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Kazi?
Under item B, I think number 4, you can delete the word meeting. And I noticed that you're asking for 20, you refer to them as classifications, specifications, is that 20 unique positions?
Yes, and I don't think we have quite that many. I'm going to adjust that. That was done as I was looking at what we had that really needed looked at. Because like I said, we do have a number of positions that are really similar that are in the same pay scale. But yes, that's kind of an approximate number.
So these are actually, this part, you're actually asking them to look at the job description and recommend any changes.
No, we're updating all of the job descriptions currently. So we're not expecting that that would be a lot of extra work, and that's a kind of a different scope of work, but we do want them to look at, you call different positions different things. So we do want some guidance on, we may have something that's called an office assistant. What is that called somewhere else? We want to make sure that we're getting an accurate comparison to another position. So we'll look at some of that. With, small cities have unique positions that are sometimes difficult to digest. So there'll be a look at some of the job descriptions that are a little bit, have more of a combination of duties to make sure that we're getting, an accurate comparison.
Okay, and then how many positions will you actually ask them to price?
I believe, what was your thought on that, Chris, when you've gone through the discussion? I think it's all of them.
Oh, which is how many?
We have 30, you mean like different unique job positions?
Yeah.
Well, I have that list and it didn't make it. It must still be on the copier. I can get that for you. We have currently, the police have just, I think their officer position is just one job description and they have different levels. Yeah, lieutenant. Here we probably have the most unique positions here.
Oh, here you've got it in the first page, 34 regular staff members.
Yeah, some of them share, obviously you'll have the utility workers, senior utility workers. So we have a lot of positions that are shared. I think City Hall, the office staff tend to be the more unique positions because they have kind of unique roles that they're fulfilling.
Yeah.
So those add to that more. And again, we have some part-time positions, but they're doing some unique work as well. So yeah, it'll be all of the positions.
Okay. And how many peers will you be asking them?
Well, this document opens up to their recommendation for that. So I think we're going to look to them to recommend what the standard is for small cities.
And are there any, perhaps based on the work that Joan did, are there any specific peers that you want them to try to include?
We know, Chris and I reach out to cities fairly regularly for comparisons of, all kinds of things, or if we've had any new positions, we've reached out. We do have several that we feel are comparable to Philomath. So the RFP is not just them selecting, it's them making some recommendations, having a discussion with us for our recommendations and coming together on comparison cities.
Okay.
I think more important to that would be maybe anybody that they select that they feel is a good fit that we at a staff level have a disagreement with, maybe somebody up in the metro area or something like that, where it's gonna feel like an outlier. That's gonna show up in the data too. So I'm not overly concerned about that, other than I don't want them to waste a lot of time comparing us to 2 or 3 cities up in the metro area that are gonna be different, and they may create a counterpoint that's, again, not comparable to where we're at in Benton County. So I think I'll take more issue if they select multiple cities that I don't feel are very good comparable cities to us.
Okay, good point.
Okay.
Let's see.
Any other questions or observations? Do we need anything else added to the scope of services? It seems pretty comprehensive to me.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Given that we're putting this out to bid and that we're going to be using a consultant or contractor to do this work, the resulting report is publicly available source data, and that information, if it comes in that the positions are paid a lot more, that will be available to the union and everybody else. And so that's the downside, right? Like but that also could be the positive that, it's slower there.
Yes, you could see it as a downside. On the flip side, I think, as you mentioned, we've had kind of a shift here, and it might be a good time for us to get a baseline, on a different level. I think we would want to know that, but it can go either way. There may be a position. I think the last time even that the internal study kind of comparison was done, there were several things that came up that were unknown at that time. But like Chris said, it's really important which cities we're comparing to, even in looking for part-time positions that we've had recently. You'll reach out to Troutdale that looks like the same, it's a similar size to Philomath. It's much, much higher because they're up in the Portland metro area. So yeah.
And they have an arch.
They do have an arch.
Just kidding.
When do negotiations start next year?
Probably be the first part of the year,
Okay,
January, February.
January.
so we would, you mentioned that it's kind of a busy time for everybody. Do you think there'll be any trouble in being able to get a firm, having them complete the work by our date, get it to city council and be ready to go for that? Are we pretty tight on that, or do we have a little latitude?
I think it could be fairly close for us, but that's kind of the importance of let's get it out there and get it back as fast as we can and get going on it. I know that Staten must have been about 3 months ago, did something similar, and their firm that reached out to me for data said it was going to be 6 months. So that's one firm that I know works in this area quite a bit. So I think it could be tight, but I think we need to let's get it done and get it as close as we can to our discussions.
Sure, that makes sense. And then the finance, this committee has the power to go ahead and recommend that, or do we have to take the city council?
Well, I think the city council has said go forward
Delegated.
with this. This is just, we felt like it would be important to have you, being the finance and admin committee, just kind of go through it, recommend anything additional. It obviously is going to go to the city council, and all of the data for you to discuss. So I think that we can move forward with it.
But we could make a decision today to say, yes, go forward with getting the RFP out.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yes, that's our intent.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay, great.
And do we feel that August 11th gives sufficient turnaround time for enough people to learn about it and to submit RFPs or proposals?
I am hoping that by reaching out directly, that this will give enough time. It's not something that they have to, go out and get pipe prices or anything. So I'm hoping that it's a pretty quick turnaround on this type of thing for them to get an estimate to us. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I've seen several that were in the 3-week range, maybe 4-week, for hearing back.
And how many firms are we sending this to?
I think I have 4 or 5 on my list currently.
Okay. Okay, good. Good. All right. So again, on scope of service, yeah, Councilor Causey.
I'm sorry, I just have one more correction and one more question. On page 4, the 4th paragraph, the next to the last line should be have instead of has. And my question was, will you be asking for references?
Yes, part of their criteria is references.
Yep, they're in there.
Mhm. Yeah, it's under performance history, number 4 on attachment A.
Okay. So the proposal format, I think looks pretty good. The one observation that I had, and I was trying to figure out where maybe to put this, probably under the cover letter. But this is sort of that theme of diversity, equity, inclusion. I know that a number of counselors have sort of wanted to see that run through various things that the council does. And so I was wondering if we could add a sentence that says, describe your company's diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, or provide it. Is that something that, what does that sound like?
We could put policy or maybe, values. Not everywhere has a formal policy. While I can assume that they would, I wouldn't want someone to feel like they couldn't submit a proposal just based off of that.
Right.
If you have one.
Right, if you have one, or what is your, we could just ask there's some pretty general even interview questions that would probably work right there. That's pretty basic.
I just was thinking that, but then if that's in there, the pass fail standard here might be that if they don't have a policy or values or whatever, would we say that means they fail, or they still pass without that? Just, thinking through this question.
Yeah, it might. We could put it under qualifications as a question. I mean, my concern is, and I'm very pro EDI policy, but my concern is that because I know that they're very booked up, these firms, is that we're already going to have, half of them say that could even provide us a proposal and fit us in.
Right.
And then you have another few of them that, oh, we don't have that. That's my only concern, is that while it is important, is it worth it to us to put that in there and risk that we won't be able to do this before union negotiations? And I think that's, I think a better thing might be to just have them do a little, either include your policy or include a brief statement, something like that, where they're including it. It's not necessarily going to be a pass fail, but it's something that they're required to include, which should hopefully show that their values one way or another, whether they have a policy or just can, at the very least, come up with a statement that they think is important for their company.
Okay, sure. And actually, I like your suggestion of putting it under the qualifications, general information, then it gets away from that pass fail thing. It just keeps the cover letter just to the purpose that it was intended. Yeah, so I like what you're suggesting, Chelsea.
Okay.
Councilor Causey.
Given the number of positions that you're asking for, do you feel the budget is adequate? I think it's 30,000. Is that correct?
Which is probably okay.
I think it's okay. Yeah. So Canby did a full pay equity, and then the rest of what we're doing, but like a full on also pay equity, that was an addition. And they had 86 positions, I think, classifications, and I think their budget was 86,000. So if you look at that, they were all at position plus additional work that we aren't having as much of that work here. So I think we're okay. I know Mike's been wrangled into several of these in recent years.
Yeah,
so
we did one in Newport, and they had 120 positions. So, and it was not that expensive. I don't remember the cost, but it wasn't wasn't 6 digits. It was less than that.
Yeah.
So, we've got 30 or less than 30.
right
positions.
Yeah, we don't have really that many.
So I think 30 hopefully will be okay.
Okay.
Mike, can you just speak to how the data was used and how did it impact city operations?
Oh boy, put me on the spot. I didn't think about it.
Good.
You're good.
Good.
Boy, it's been a couple of years. What it did to operations, really nothing much. It consolidated, it really streamlined the processing in our system. Overall operations, it was fine. Nothing changed.
You didn't see any big surprises in the
There
salaries?
was some big surprises, yes. A lot of people were not being paid properly. But you gotta remember they're at the coast. So they're a little bit behind time. So that was the big thing. It was a lot of it's that way, and we didn't. Like I said, it streamlined stuff, but in the overall operations at finance we implemented over 3 years because some of the differences were really substantial. So in order to preserve the budget, we took it in steps.
Sure.
So it didn't really change much at all. Surprises, yes, there were a few surprises. So we're going to have that too.
Right.
I've seen similar too, but I know that the city that I was with, it had been a long time. They were leaving a lot of time between even doing an internal comparison. And that's where you get into a lot of trouble. If you haven't done anything for 5 years, there are likely going to be some surprises. So because that's been done here fairly regularly, I think we'll have less surprises. That's our hope.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think Newport had not done anything for years. Right?
Hmm.
So basically when I and the city manager, we changed the whole structure. So, you know, we went through and just did everything.
Got it. Thank you. With that, I'd be happy to move to recommend that staff proceed with the classification and compensation study as amended.
Okay.
Second.
Second, okay, motion by the mayor and second by Councilor Causey. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And that's that. That's Chelsea. Thank you for bringing this to us and providing some good explanations about it and responding to the questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Great. All right. Chris, do we have any other business or councilors, Mayor? Do we have anything else?
Yeah, maybe Mike can give us just a quick report on the audit and where we're at this year.
Okay.
If you don't mind, I can do that real quick, Councilor Lowe. We just started the other day. We sent them quite a bit of data yesterday. They were supposed to call us today to give us, I guess, to run us through the ringer with all their questions. Have not heard anything, but we sent quite a bit of data yesterday. We sent them all the employee listings. I sent them the complete GL. I was surprised they wanted that. And the employee history. So they've got a lot to dig through at the moment. They're scheduled to be here September 21st. We should have an engagement letter for Chris's signature here anytime soon. We still don't have a contract. Well, we do, but we don't. I had to send it back because I did not like the way it was laid out. So I had quite a few questions for him. So.
Now, is this a firm we worked with before?
Yes.
It is.
It's Grove Muller and
Oh.
can't think of the last name. Swank maybe?
Mhm.
So we've used in the last 2 years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But are they the same or is it a different firm? I can't remember the last one we had.
It's the same firm we've
Same.
had the last 2 years.
Oh, okay, because it seemed, if I recall properly, that Joan had some concerns or there's some issues with them performing, or she wasn't getting the final report on time. That there, do you recall either one of you? It seemed like there were a few hiccups along the line. Maybe it's just they were slow and they were just very burdened because of COVID, but that was something that came up last time.
Yeah, I think that was our previous auditor that we were having the concerns with.
That one, okay.
So I think these have been good. I think COVID kind of affected everybody.
Mhm.
And so it made it just more difficult to come out on site and some other things. So there were a lot of cities and counties that were behind last year and had to file for extensions. We were one of them. But then, you know, they got through it okay. I think, you know, it's been 3 years and Mike's come on board. He's already tipped his hat a little bit. We intend to kind of put a request back out after this season, and we can see if they're still interested and dip our toes in the water, see who else is available, and make sure we're still competitive.
Okay, good. And so, Mike, if the audit starts the 21st of September, when would you think we'd have the report? Would it be by the end of the year?
My goal, Councilor Lowe, is to have it by the end of the year, December 31st.
Okay.
I always like to take the first of the year off.
Uh-huh. Okay, you're on the record.
Yeah.
All right.
That's what I have for you.
Okay, thank you for that briefing. Are there any other questions or any other business before we call it a day?
Nothing for me.
All right. Well, then the meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody, very much.
Thank
Take
you.
care,
You
Dave.
well.
Thank you.